Hello, my name is Kerry and welcome back to my channel. Today I am bringing you my November wrap-up. So, November was an interesting month. I didn't read very much. Yeah, some stuff happened at work that has been particularly stressful. I don't want to go into too much detail, but there's some restructuring going on in the department I work for. No one's losing their jobs, which is great, because that can sometimes happen, so we're grateful for that, but several people, their roles are changing significantly, and there's lots of other changes as part of this restructure that as a team we're not very happy with, and it's going through consultation at the moment, so we're hoping to get a chance to feed back on it. Yeah, it's very stressful, very tense atmosphere at work, and it's really been affecting me, been making me quite anxious, and it's been affecting my sleep and all sorts of other things. So yeah, so I've not read very much this month at all, and I've sort of lost track a little bit of other people's booktube videos, so I'm trying to start catching up on a few of them now. You may have noticed as well that I didn't post on my regular schedule. I missed a couple of videos out, and that was partly because the last couple of videos I did post before I missed the few, I knew I hadn't put as much effort into editing them and I wasn't really very happy, but I was just feeling the pressure to get stuff up, and so I needed to take a break. It was only about a week, it was only a couple of videos that were delayed. The videos that have been made, and I just hadn't had time to edit them or upload them, and I need to give myself some headspace. So basically I've just been watching a lot of TV. Also I've had a lot of stuff going on socially, particularly with my church, and actually that is the thing that has been keeping me sane this month, is having to go out and see people, see friends, and made me realise I have a really great support network, which is what has kept me going. So all that to say, I finished 3 books in November, and 2 of those I'd already read most of in October. So I only read 1 book in its entirety in November. I started a couple of other books as well, so I'm going to go through them too. But yeah, just managed to finish the 3. So my Goodreads total for the year is up to 85, which is still respectable. I'd already hit my goal, which was 78, was that my goal? So I'd hit that in October, so any book really is a bonus from now on. I was kind of hoping I'd get to 100 by the end of the year, because that would be really cool. I don't know if I will. I might do, but I mean, that means I've got to read now 15 books in December. So if I finish all the ones I've already started, and I read like another 10 after that, yeah, I don't know if it'll happen, but never mind. Right, so of the books I read, 1 of them was non-fiction, and it was one that I'd borrowed from a friend. 1 was a reread. 1 was a book that I bought this year. And the non-fiction one was also ticked off another country on my read around the world, which was Italy. I gave 1 book 4 stars and 2 books 5 stars. I read 1 book by a male author and 2 books by female authors, and 1 of the books I read was for Tome Topple. So without further ado, let's talk about the books. Now usually I go from least favourite to most favourite, which is kind of what I'm doing, but it's also the order that I read them in. Well, I usually start with my lowest rated books and move through to my highest rated books, not necessarily least favourite to most favourite. But yeah, this just happens to be the order that I read them in as well. So the first book I finished in November I gave 4 stars to, and that was I, Francis by Carlo Caretto. So this is, I say it's non-fiction, it's an interesting book. I've never read anything quite like it. So this is the story of St. Francis of Assisi, the saint, best known for his love for animals. So it's essentially a biography, but it's written from Francis' perspective. So it's written in first person, as if it's like a memoir or an autobiography, but it's obviously not written by St. Francis, because he died he was 12th century? I can't even remember. It's really cleverly written. It was really engaging. It was a really great insight into his, I keep saying really, it was a great insight into his life, because I didn't know very much about him, other than that he was a saint who liked animals, who'd taken a vow of poverty, and so had all the brotherhood. So he set up a brotherhood, a monastery essentially, and was involved also in helping a female friend of his to set up her convent, which was I can't remember the name. It's been like, I finished this right at the start of the month. I literally had about 5 pages left at the end of October, so don't really remember very much. Apart from that, it was very interesting, and I've never read anything quite like it. And then the last sort of 15-20 pages are different prayers based on St. Francis's own writings and on sections from the Bible as well. So I found this a really quite powerful read when I read it mostly in October. I finished it off in November. This was lent to me by a friend who is encouraging me to read sort of more of this type of book about the saints and sort of spirituality. Yeah, and it was really good. So really enjoyed that, gave it 4 stars. The next book that I finished in November. The next book that I finished in November was a reread, and that was Emma by Jane Austen. This is my favourite Jane Austen novel. I've been rereading all of her works over the last sort of year and a half, since the centenary of her death, 200 years since her death last year. First time I reread it in a long time. I think I read it first when I was in my late teens. And yeah, and since then obviously I've seen a lot of different adaptations. So it was really nice to read it again, knowing the story and knowing what is going to happen, and sort of picking up some details about some of the different characters. And I just really love this book. I love Mr. Knightley, so if someone can find me a man who's a bit like Mr. Knightley, I'll be a happy lady. But yeah, it's just so beautifully written as well, and Jane Austen has just such a way of writing memorable characters. So if you haven't read any Jane Austen, this one is my favourite. And there's so many adaptations that you can go and check them out and learn the story before you read them. If you're a bit intimidated, then maybe watch an adaptation to get an idea of what the story's about and then go in, because I mean, I think she's quite easy to read, but then I'm used to reading classics. So if you're new to reading classics, then definitely check out the adaptations first so you're familiar with the story. But yeah, so I gave this 5 stars. Obviously, it's one of my all-time favourite books, so that was great. Finally, for Tome Topple, I read a book which I had recently bought, which is Muse of Nightmares by Laini Taylor. This is the second book in the Strange the Dreamer duology. So this book really helped me to get out of my slump, which I'm not fully out of yet, but this book certainly got me back on track. I just love Laini Taylor's writing. Her writing style is so beautiful, so captivating, and just really immersive. She writes such beautiful descriptions, and just really, I was really sucked into the story, and it was what I really needed. With all the stuff going on, I just needed something that was true escapism. And while some of the subject matter is quite heavy in this series, I'm so in love with the way she writes that it made it really easy to read. So I gave this 5 stars. I gave Strange the Dreamer 5 stars. I gave Daughters of Smoke and Bone 5 stars. Laini Taylor's now an author by author for me. I have the rest of the Daughter of Smoke and Bone trilogy to read, which I'm really excited about, and I just can't wait to see what she comes up with next. And the way this book ends, there's potential for there to be more stories about these characters, which is really exciting. So I'm not going to go too much into what happens in this book, because it won't make sense unless you've read Strange the Dreamer, and I've tried to explain the concept to people, and while they've been interested, it's very difficult to explain without giving too much away. So I really do recommend checking out Laini Taylor if you haven't yet. And I get the impression that these books are linked to the Daughter of Smoke and Bone trilogy, so they all take place not necessarily in the same world, but in worlds that are linked. So I'm really looking forward to finishing off that trilogy and seeing what happens there, and the potential that all of the characters might meet someday is just really exciting to me. So yeah, so this was 5 stars from me, and this was the only book I actually finished for Tome Topple. I did start another book for Tome Topple, but it took me a little while to get into it, so I didn't actually finish it. I'm about halfway through it, so I'm going to go on to now to the books that I'm currently halfway through. They're all books that I am hoping to finish this year, so we'll see how I get on with that. So the other book I started for Tome Topple is The Clockmaker's Daughter by Kate Morton. So this was unexpected that this joined my Tome Topple TBR. If you saw my October wrap up in TBR, this is a book from the library. I don't know if you can see the sticker there. It's a 2-week loan one, so this came in much sooner than I was expecting. I didn't realise it was a fastback 2-week loan book, and so I started reading it as soon as I finished Muse of Nightmares, because I've got it for about less than a week now, so I really need to try and finish it. It is quite chunky. It's nearly 600 pages, but the print is actually quite big, so it's not a difficult read. It just took me a little while to get into because I love Kate Morton's books, and they're all about similar themes. They're stories told across different generations, usually linked by some sort of stately home or documents or something, and it's about families across the generations, and there's some sort of mystery to unravel. So this book is the same as that, still just sort of getting into what all the mysteries are and how they might be linked. What threw me slightly is parts of the narrative in this seem to be told by a ghost, which is new. It's not something Kate Morton's done before, and now that I'm into it, I'm really enjoying it, but I really struggled to start with that narrative voice, because it just threw me, because I've read all of her books so far and it's not something she's done before. So it's that bit more speculative than her previous books, but I'm really, really enjoying it. So just past halfway through, so I'm hoping to finish that this weekend. A book that I've had to temporarily give up on, which is one I've mentioned for the last couple of months, is Emily Nation by Alex McQuay. So this was our Ninja book pick for October. I hadn't finished it by the end of October. I was still persevering with it into November until all the stuff happened at work, and then it's a really good book, but it's really dark and really intense, and I couldn't cope. I couldn't read it anymore. I had to stop. So I'm just past halfway with this one. I do want to finish it because it's really good. I just need to be in a slightly better mental state than I was to get any further with it. So I'll let you know how I get on with that, because as I say, I was really, really enjoying it, and then my mental health got to be a bit fragile, and I just couldn't cope with the intensity of this. So yeah, I will be picking it up again soon. I'm not written it off, I'm not DNFing it, I'm just temporarily putting it on the shelf. But I do want to finish it. I do want to know what happens to the characters, because it's really a very engaging story, very interesting. I've not read anything like this before, so I do want to know what happens, but yeah, I've had to take a break. Another book that actually started this month is our Ninja Book Club pick for November. So again, I'm not quite halfway through it. This is called A Change Is Gonna Come. This is a collection of short stories and poetry by Black and Middle Eastern writers from the UK. Published by Stripes, I think is the name of the publishing company. So I've read about halfway through. I've read about half the stories. The ones I've read so far I've really enjoyed. Again, some of them are a little bit speculative. One that I liked most so far is called Marionette Girl by a writer called Aisha Bushby, which is about a girl with OCD, and it was really interesting, particularly reading it at a time when I was going through some anxiety, and I have very mild OCD tendency when I get anxious. I'm not anything that's been diagnosed, but I can certainly see, reading about this character made me recognise some of those behaviours in my own life, and so that was really quite helpful at the time. So I'm really looking forward to reading the rest of the book, and yeah, I think I've got 6 or 7 left to go, and they've all been very interesting, and I definitely will be looking up some of the other works by the authors listed here, because I've been really enjoying this. So this is a good book to check out, particularly if you want to read more diversely, if you're interested in own voices, representation of minority ethnic writers. You'll probably enjoy this. Another book that I started a little while ago that I've not got very far with yet is Of This and Other Worlds by C.S. Lewis. This is a non-fiction collection of essays he wrote about fantasy writing. So it's a subject I'm really interested in, and I'm about halfway through the first essay because I couldn't really concentrate on it. So I do really want to carry on reading this. I want to finish this year because C.S. Lewis is one of my all-time favourite writers, and I love his non-fiction as much as I love his fiction. Excuse me. So I'm really keen to actually get to the end of this because it's only very short, and so I'm a bit annoyed at myself that I've not got very far with it yet. And then the last book that I'm currently reading that I'm hoping to finish by the end of the year is Revelations of Divine Love by Julian of Norwich. So I have mentioned this before, I think, as well. This was actually recommended to me by the same person that lent me the book about St. Francis. So this has been on my shelf, been meaning to read it for ages, and I just haven't got around to it. Julian of Norwich was an anchoress. Is that what she was called? So she lived in a little one-room cell on the side of a church, and she had a servant who would bring her food, and she just basically would pray for people and they could come and see her, and she would give them advice. And she had these visions from God that she wrote down. She was one of the earliest people to write in English. To a certain extent, she's been largely forgotten because some of the things she said were considered almost heretical at the time, but actually in modern times what she's saying is more widely accepted. So she's sort of a bit of a poster girl for feminist theology in some ways, and I've been meaning, as I say, to read this for ages, and I'm just sort of getting used to her writing style at the moment. So she wrote down her visions twice. So she wrote a short text, and which was basically not long after it happened, and then years later when she was living in this as an anchoress, she sort of wrote them out again and elaborated more on them and reflected on them. So yeah, so that's that one. As for what else I'm planning to read in this month, I have filmed a TBR for the Christmas readathon, which I'm going to try and post. I don't know if I'm posting it before or after this wrap up. Probably after. So you'll be able to see that. So that's all the books I'm intending to... Well, not all the books I'm intending to read for the reason. Some of the choices I have for books I might read during my readathon. I also still have, I think, about half a dozen books out from the library. So I'm going to try and get through a few more of them, and then most of those are due back before the end of December. So I think I'm probably just going to take back the ones that I haven't read, maybe keep 2, because my New Year's resolution is to borrow less books from the library so I can actually tackle my physical TBR. So my plan is to only allow myself to borrow 2 books from the library at a time. So I might start that a bit early and just take back a load of the ones I haven't read, and then put requests in when I'm ready to for some of the others. So yeah, so that's probably what I'll do. Somehow I've still managed to make this quite a long video, so let's go and edit that. But yeah, that's all I have to say for this. So that's all the books I read in November and all the ones I'm currently reading, and let me know if you've read any of these books, what you thought of them. Yeah, what you read in November, what are you planning to read in December? Are you going to take part in my readathon? Announcement video will be linked down below. And yeah, that's it for today. So thank you so much for watching. Please like this video if you liked it, subscribe if you haven't, and you can follow me on my social media. That'll be linked down in the description. And I'll say goodbye for now. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll talk to you again soon. Bye!